All right, sorry about that. Thank you and everyone for joining the Internet of Value Foundation NY, episode 182, Technological Advancements. Thank you for everyone who comes and listens to this conversation and information in here, and hope you guys find it as enjoyable as I know I do every day I get to host these spaces. Devon, welcome already up. Shellfish, welcome to the space, although I think it made the noise that you're up. I cannot tell if you actually are up. But yeah, Devon, if you want to jump right in, go ahead, man. It's an open forum today. Gonna host a quick little space here, most likely 45 minutes to an hour and a half or so. I'll have some dialogue myself that I'd like to say probably towards the end of the space and uh, um, means towards technological advancements. I may change the title of the space prior to the end of the space as well. But yeah, welcome. Oh, Shellfish, now it shows you as a speaker. Maybe you weren't up before. My fault.
Hello.
Hello, Devon. You didn't get to come up and speak about automation in Stewie's face beforehand, although you did come up. Did you have any thoughts you wanted to add?
No, actually, I just saw you in the space, so I decided to come up. I actually didn't hear anything about the automation take, and then I got a phone call, so I must have missed. What was the stance on automation?
So we were speaking about how automation, or how it was foreseen, right? That automation would really be able to handle all jobs that are really taking place labor-wise today, and it was really hard for Super to see a labor job or a job in general that wouldn't be able to be uh, taken up and represented in actionable ways, in whether it's a robot or automated sequence device like a factory, paired with things like AI and large language models being, of course, the AI, and in fact that would be used for something like that.
Well,
Oh, what a pleasure. Go ahead, Devon. Sorry.
I was going to say it's my opinion that since we have had the civilization from beginning of civilization, we have always tried to automate, right? That has been our entire design and goal is to automate and make our lives easier. And if you could look over the entire timeline of humanity, we have been automating away and making our lives easier, right? There are things that we no longer do because we have automated it, but it would have taken us years to get that. Something as simple as fire. We automated fire. I can go to my stove and get fire, right? That was before such a technological advancement, and it helped progress us into the future to do multiple different things. So I say that, of course, I perceive a future where we will have automated everything that we can perceive today because that has been our entire goal, so that we don't have to do manual things anymore and make our lives more simplistic so that we can, I don't know, live.
I like it, Devon. It's an increase in the adaptations of awareness and these spectrums of tool sets that come from them. The understanding that there is a goal that wants to be accomplished, and we, the goal seeker, want to do whatever we can to accomplish it. And with that, tools being just more so an extension of our beliefs in ourselves in this actionable sequence we call reality. And we, of course, in the space prior, we were speaking about um, what happens and what does it lead to after these types of technological advancements really begin to take place. The All the way to the sociological means, bounce to the metaphysical means, and to mechanical means that gets represented in between. All of the different facets that nooks and crannies that will essentially be altered and represented in a different state that is not so much relative to the average Homo sapien today.
Do you, do you think that everything that we do today will be automated away? I wasn't sure if you were agreeing with that aspect.
I think in a world of, and I give the same analogy, in a world where everything can be automated, most will be automated, but some will most likely hold on to the authenticity of the previous state. And with that comes, a couple different facets, right, and avenues that it could take. It essentially could eventually be that which is a representation that is long gone and forgotten, and in the sense of technological advancements that, essentially means you just don't use technology. And there are people like that still today, right? And uh, I think it's a very minute number, and it probably will remain so. And there's a class that really looks for the authenticity of the previous state, and it becomes something as of a prized possession. And I think with a lot of different medias and the forms of creations and generations of content that in all different forms that we, as a species put together, that will still be really favored from an authentic standpoint. And, even if that's all the way down to the way that tiling is done and represented into a bathroom, right? So I think there will be benefits and use cases for both, but the majority of stuff can and will be automated. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, and with that, the larger question then becomes down to, with all of this um, time that's been freed up, with all of these people who don't have to put candles together, right, to create the light that we then light to be able to then do whatever we're going to do after that, right? We can now then say, okay, we have electricity, we turn the switch on. What am I going to do now, right? I've got all this free time now. What do we do? And I think that is potentially, you know, 2032, 2035. We begin to see the merge, right? The questionable analysis of, okay, there is a progression of technological advancements that have occurred around me over the last 5 years. And the next step in case and manner is the question of how not do I survive it, but how do I thrive in it? How do I take what has emerged, and of course, emergence being just a means of expressing a measurable and a change in state in which cannot necessarily be represented by a conceptual understanding because of the computational irreducibility that we know that we do suffer as a species. And I say suffer, which is a kind of interesting word to use there, but this limited limitlessness that exists, knowing to know that one is limited to know nothing, yet to know that everything is there, in some sense. And I think that question of pace in that 2032 to 2035 region really becomes, I think, symbolic in the representation of the not only sociological states of the majority of the species, probably at that point in time, but also the actual usage of what technological tool sets are adopted and merged with. Also, I'm going to send some invites out, see if we can get some more people up here. Welcome, Sasha. I'm glad you're in the space, man. And Textile, welcome up. Persistence, Crooklyn, Star. Feel free if you guys, anybody wants to come up and you guys have any thoughts on on the topic at hand, and or if you want to switch it. I mean, we're talking technological advancements today, DLT, Internet of Things, Internet of Bodies, whatever it may be. it's involved in the technological advancements. Of course, I'm particularly speaking about large language models, AI, possibly working with um, different means of creating operations automation wise with mechanical units that could initially be put together by us, but are already being put together by other robots that have designed them. Shellfish, go ahead.
Yeah, I posted and I think I sent you that the video today from oh my gosh, Craig Mundy. I think that's how you say his name. Anyway, he's the one that helped write the book with Kissinger and Eric Schmidt before Kissinger died, Genesis. And his like interview, I can't remember, I think it's Singularity. Somebody had posted the little clip and it was actually a really good video if anybody wants to go back and watch it. Um, anyway, he was saying how yeah, we basically have like we're on the precipice of creating an alien species that we're going to have the choice to co-create with, and it's a lot of the stuff like that you have discussed in your spaces over the last few years. And you said right now it's still to them like at the tool phase, but as we progress further and further along, with it being closer to ASI, really trying to figure out like where we want to go as far as being a hybrid, or merging alongside with it. And yeah, it was just it's kind of nice to see like it becoming more and more mainstream, what you've been openly discussing for a few years now. So I don't know, it was pretty cool. And I think he's from Google, I think, or Microsoft. I can't remember now, but yeah, he's one of the top people in the industry. So that's pretty fascinating. It's funny that you said the technological advancements. Yeah, I had told you earlier today I had actually withdrawn from classes because of my acceptance of where everything's going. Um, and it was pushing so hard to like find a new career, find a new path. Kind of like an ant, like running around crazy trying to find its job to do, and kind of settled into acceptance today. And it's weird to think that there is I don't know, like something out there that's already doing all the work. Like it's like, oh, I need to go find a task. I need to go do something to provide money, food, shelter. And it's like, crap, well, by the time, so I'm in my mid 40s. So if I went through and did all the cybersecurity stuff, I'd be late 40s, early 50s by the time I get to lower mid level. And then I thought, okay, well, those jobs will probably be gone by the time I get out. And then, okay, so now playing catch up for the automation of, I mean, obviously there's going to be humans in the loop, but like there's so many of these things that are going on. And I felt like this every every time I turn around, the last few years. It's like, okay, I'm gonna try to do this, and literally the only thing that has paid off. And I mean, this is obviously XRP is just one facet, but I put money in XRP and I just let it sit there, and it created more wealth than anything could have done so far. Like literally, anytime I invested in a class, trying to improve other ways of making money, it's literally been buy hold, has been the most um, profitable, which is really weird to say. So like, okay, jobs gone, investing is the future. Like that's literally where we're going. It seems, or at least that's, yeah. Being with my kids, that's where I'm at right now. Taking more time to cook and have intention in my food. I guess like providing better, healthier love in my food. Sorry, that was a little rant.
It's okay. Yes, and we make the choices that we make, and we got to be happy with them, and it's our choice, it's our life. Right, and you want to live it, and you're part of this collective, and to take care of oneself is most up of the utmost importance to be able to take care of the others around them. Devon, please go ahead, man, jump in.
What motivated the conversation? What was the inspiration behind making a space called technological advancements?
Well, we are in a previous space talking about automation, and I am home today, and I have the I should say home. What is a home, right? Sorry. You I am here today and available, and ready to have a conversation. And I felt, you know what? Let's keep the topic of automation and robotics going. And I thought it was, a perfect moment. Of course, we just had the blood moon to speak about where I think we'll be in like 2032.
Okay. Um, it's pretty interesting. I definitely think that we are. I don't know. A lot of people uh, say that we're going to have these drastic changes, but will we actually be able to recognize the change? Right. If you look at today in comparison to 2010, it's a vastly different world. But actually living through it, you don't seem to actually see the changes. You can feel them, but they're not as recognizable, if that makes sense. It takes time to kind of grasp the change. So if you're saying that you're going to see change, I would like to know, is it going to be a unrecognizable change, like something that is undeniable, or is it going to be something that is slowly integrated into our lives that would just become part of our everyday being?
You know, it's an interesting synopsis you have there, Devon, right? Because it could be attributed to many of different things. And I say that why? Because one person you could have been in the same situation at a reasonable point of this venture where we were speaking about this epoch of time where the change was occurring and seen, say, in a shorter relative period of time, taken a synopsis of that and said, based off of this information, it seems like this is the most probable outcome. And then if that next, step in probable outcome of that Merkle tree happened, you can then create these more probabilistic, properties of these different outcomes that could occur. And, through that, be able to really paint yourself a synaptic picture of longer and longer and longer timelines. But doing that in that process, you would also be analyzing the depths of the change occurring in, magnitudes of these smaller epochs of time. And like, my thought is like wondering like, does that impact us differently? If that were to happen, if you did that through that period of time, if you per se, I don't know if you do Devon or not, but if you journaled and you journaled specific information, measuring these differences and noticeable changes of society. Um, if you went back and looked back at that, would you be able to say, oh, you know what? I really did notice that those magnitudes and change that were occurring. And then you can better say, well, if there was a situation where something happened where you didn't account for it, you can then go back and say, well, how can I create a better propagation of this information to better understand it to then have a better probabilistic outcome. Of course, there are no failures, there are just learning moments.
What is the biggest technological advancement that you think we're going to see within this 7 year time period?
I mean, you know me, I don't play favorites. Biggest would be like, what do I think personally is the largest magnitude and change? I think you, Devon, you you will be.
You Can you explain more about me?
You being you, part of the substrate in which is all of us being us. The collective, Devon.
The collective consciousness is what you think will rise within the next 7 years.
Well, that last word is a little touchy to people
Why wouldn't you just say us then instead of saying Devon's going to be the big change or the collective? Why wouldn't you just say us?
because Devon is us.
I am you and you are we.
And who am I other than you?
However, do you agree with that statement that the collective consciousness is the biggest transformation that you think is going to happen?
I I don't want to use that last word, consciousness, because although I do think that it's relative to what you're asking. I like to think the word consciousness is relative to a level of awareness. And the more conscious you can be, the more aware of a particular, actionable state and substrate that you can be. But there is also always that underlying notion that you are an observer, and as an observer, there is a past notion of reference in relation to what I'm observing or believing to observe, which creates some sort of belief behind my personification of the way I'm going to identify with it or whatever I believe to be observing. So I mean, with taking that into, I think I took myself, lost my train of thought there, also going down my own little rabbit hole, but taking it out of myself out of context. Um, I think from the larger grain of things, with the tool sets that will be available, you could think that based off of the incentive that is driven behind the relation behind the actionable process of sequences and in society, it pushes the majority of people uh, into that, you know, um, particular bin, if you will.
But different. I need you to give me like something quantifiable. What is the change? What is like the change that you're seeing over the next 7 years that I can say, hey, this is a change?
Devon, have you been following Charles's research?
Ooh,
But
Charles Hoskins?
no,
Interesting.
no, I don't really follow Charles.
so you want like definitive process changes? Because I mean, I can give you definitive process changes. Those themselves are, always very typically localized, and so it's very hard for you to necessarily get a hard
Oh,
grasp on it. But we're even seeing it in the labor market. I mean,
well, wait, before you
um,
go too far,
oh,
in reference to when you said me, you said I am the change, and you said we are going to be the change. What did you mean by that?
well, and I am you, you being me, referencing that society is us, and our choices are what is the derivative of the sequence of events that occurs, of course, and the beliefs of society.
But that's current status quo. What's going to change due to our decisions that we make?
Oh, the technological advancements being available based off of the influence of those congruence, those actionable sequences of will lead to that miracle tree of change.
How about
But what
this?
is the change though, Def?
How about this? Is there physical changes to the actual human body?
Oh, I think there will be in some cases. Yeah, definitely. When the merge becomes applicable. And I'm not talking about how we have it today, where you have your generation two, or even they're I think they're even working on what could be looked at as like a V3 from Neuralink. But there of course there are a whole bunch of BCIs out there, which stands for brain control interfaces, right? All different types of ways and technologies that are tapping into the understandings and knowledge base that is the operating system that is us, and even in organic ways, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be synthetic and mineral based. Well, I guess we are mineral based. I shouldn't really necessarily. It doesn't. But yeah, silicon based really would be more so better to state when representing a silicon based environment or
What leads you to believe that
outcome.
this will happen? Is there signs showing, like, are there actual samples in humans at this point that are displaying any of these
Look at Chelsea with the
physical
questions.
changes? I'm not letting you. I will paint you into a corner today because you will do word jargon, and I I want some more descriptive answers and more in depth answers.
Of course, we already have examples of people who have the Neuralink installed. I mean, it's given it's given three different people already the capability to motorize, external operations from a computational source. Of course, it's really just used for video games and different types of like social media stuff for the time being, just using a computer for basic stuff. But yeah, I mean, nonetheless, this is incredible. You have things like um,
Those are modern day.
mm,
Okay,
X,
so
yeah,
fast
and
forward
X.
3 to 5 years.
Oh,
So so
we're talking the
so
2030. So
yeah.
we're going to be at a point in the next starting 7 years or so, in my beliefs, personally, okay, my opinion, um, where the capabilities of having localized AIs and and the advancements that will come from the knowledge sets that's been gathered by all of these different types of computational resource sources, whether they be social media, they be online, they be manual sets. The amount of information that'll be able to be accumulated together and put into a knowledge graph through those sequence of events will be able to have actionable represented states, computationally being able to create different types of inventions and have them manufactured in what would be possible to be hours, but most likely will take days for something like that to happen. Today takes billions of dollars and 5 to 10 years typically before you ever see a product hit a market or anything like that. I mean, to invent, to put something together, all the way down to the microscopic level where you're talking about microbial. Um, Combinations that can literally create the different types of substances from a biological perspective, which could be utilized in the forms of like xenobots to essentially repair or do whatever is needed as a use case for the body. I mean, these types of things are already being done, to some extent today, right? Xenobots exist. The ability to take cells out of your body from almost anywhere in your body. I mean, take the cells out of the trachea, right? That exist. The cells that you would think that do nothing, sit in your entire life inside of your trachea, right, and just lay dormant. Take them out, put them into a petri dish, give them to Michael Levin in particular, right? And he could take the tool sets and our technological advancements that are being used and essentially give them a new life. Inject them back into the body, into whatever area may be damaged, and watch them go and repair it. I mean, it's just, incredible possible technologies that are already being developed. And thinking 5 to 7 years from now, when AI, these large language models, from not only the localized formats that they'll exist in, but the compiling that'll be able to be done and accessible over time, from all the information that'll be gathered, this is, I think what we're speaking about today being possible will be nominally low on the Richter scale of
So you're saying
what's going
within
on every
five to
day.
7 years, there'll be the possibility of kind of like when Spider-Man got bit by the spider and woke up muscly and have perfect vision and all that crap.
Listen here, there's national security risk with that, so you got to be questioned. You got to question what will be publicly available.
Right.
But I'm not saying something like that is not already publicly available.
Yeah, risk to who, Death Ranger?
I don't want those healthy people with muscles and perfect vision out there.
To the
That
to the
seems
beliefs
yeah.
of the herd.
Yeah, that's a good point, Death Ranger. I just want to come up here and say that there is like a difference in the reality experience from the consumer society, from the general consensus society, and the individuals that are experiencing the the process of realizing that long term window that will then be sort of redistributed in a back propagated way as consumer products based on like the demand of them, which is not present right now. There is no demand for this. There's a demand for information of these things, which is interesting in itself. But there really is no mechanism in the psychology of the instant gratification consumer mind that's interested in any long-standing form of shift or change towards a healthier wholeness of technological experience. It's a weird dichotomy, but it has to be attended to by the technology and the people pushing the technology forward as well.
Did you just cue Peter Thiel?
I don't know. Is he isn't he busy this week doing the Antichrist seminars?
You're right, he is busy this week, and I forgot about that. Well, that alone, that seminar, 3 days about the Antichrist, that might push the people for more interest in what you're speaking on. You know, I guess we need some sort of adverse effect in order for people to desire a healing change. You know, sometimes it's not till the floor falls out from beneath our feet that we realize we need to learn how to fly.
What an interesting synopsis as well, Tyler. You know, the underlying notion that if we didn't have something to compare it to, how would we relate to it? You know, I completely agree. And so, Devon, when we speak about the change, maybe this is why one of the reasons it feels like nothing is changing, right? I mean, you're just living life. But the depths and the magnitudes of how much change is actually occurring around you is almost masked by that acknowledgement that is occurring. I think that's a interesting thought.
Well, people often deny change, right? And that is what leads them to be left behind. And some people embrace it. They can see the tide changing, rising, the tide rising. However, for the average observer, it's not something that they can necessarily distinguish. They're just living it in real time. It's not until we have the benefit of hindsight that we can say, hey, this is where the change occurred. So when I hear people talk about these great changes that will happen in the future time period, I give you an example. There was a great change that happened in 2020 that we could not deny has changed the status quo of the United States. That was called COVID, right? I didn't have to have hindsight to know that things have drastically changed with COVID. So I'm giving a metric by using that example. Do you think that the changes that you see happening between the 2032 time period and 2035 will be something that is so drastic that in real time I would be like, whoa, this is a change?
Yeah, I can't answer that for you because, of course, you and I are two different perceptions as an observer and identify with things and, relate to what would be that change
Can I interject
differently.
right quick? Let me be clear. Will you perceive it as a change? Your perception personally, not answering for me, but answering for yourself. Will you see that change as something? Do you believe that there will be a change that you perceive personally as something as great and undeniable?
Well, the thing is it's interesting. It's a very interesting question because it's why would my underlying opinion be that if I didn't believe it to be so? In some sense, of course, when we state opinions about something that we think to be relative based off of the Merkle tree of events that will take place to something of the future, right? Um, there is a and you know would make sense to have an underlying notion of belief that it is definitive that is going to occur. If not, why would I say it?
Do you think that um, body hacking technology will be available to the masses within this time period? No right or wrong answer.
It already is. But depending, of course, depends on what you define as body hacking.
Ooh, I guess that's fair because it is already here. Things like Neuralink. Do you think it will be readily accessible to the masses?
Tyler, if you're on a headset, it sounds like you might have jumped into a pool with it.
Sorry about that.
Better. What'd you say though?
I said things like Neuralink. Do you think that that will be accessible to the average person?
Oh yeah, great example. All right, so today you're only seeing this for privatized use and commercial grade medical instances. Even 3 years from now, and there are other units that are publicly available, but you're going to see external headsets. You're going to see Bluetooth wireless headsets, right? You're going to see all these different types of synaptic types of setups. Or seeing stuff with glasses, right? That you can even think of like this. The Apple goggles that came out, right? All these different types of ways where they're going to, enable those types of what a Neuralink, proportionally is going to allow to be enabled as well. And then eventually, maybe it'll be as something as simple as, uh, something you can put on your tooth or inside of your skin, and it just enables these technologies forever. Or it's organic completely, and we learn how to build the synaptic bridges in the brain to further understand the complexity of states and awareness that are all occurring around us, aka all these different types of frequencies which make up the electromagnetic world that is. And I don't know. I think the possibilities are endless, and the amount of ways and avenues that we can take them, be it that same way.
Wait, did you just let me get this straight, Death Ranger? You basically just said that Neuralink already exists and that we're learning how to tap into these invisible powers and harness our energies to use it as Neuralink would be used?
I think that is a fine observation.
Yeah, because once in a while I fucking hear you guys when I don't even have a headset on. I can just hear people talking. I'm like, oh, what's up, Dev? But they didn't drill a hole in my brain the size, the shape of a coin, and put anything in. I just came that way.
That's okay. We hear you rocking out as well over there, so you keep rocking out.
The brute force approach. Um, I was gonna comment on the COVID, the 2020 thing, and how like that's an interesting example of reaction versus like a proactive element to it. You can also look at attention mechanisms of social media and all of the people in the early 2000s, the late 90s even, and probably way back, that were warning of of this and documenting it and discussing it and having seminars and dedicated speaking times towards what they perceived an inevitability based on trajectories and math and social behavior, psychology. So sometimes I find myself like part of the reactive element of society that's like, oh, how could we not have seen this coming? And then I separate from it ever so slightly and I go about doing independent research and I see how I could have seen it coming very quickly. And so I think that's kind of at play here is that there is a bifurcation of independent thought versus group thought that is starting to delineate itself more substantially, and we're coming to find out that like we can operate as a healthier group as individuals.
I love it. And when I say when you use the word healthier, I think symbolic, right? In nature, right, representing a symbiotic relationship that can be potentially brought to the forefront of the actionable reasons of why all of the sequence of events would actually even be occurring themselves, right? To think today, why do we get up and go and do the things that we do? Potentially talk to the people that we talk about. All of these things create, have some sort of monetary incentive behind them. I mean, down to the thinking about just wanting to go out and procreate, right? The fundamental nature of even logically wanting the expression of what we believe to be our gene pool to create to have further generations. All of this has some sort of monetary incentive behind it today, and I do think that, of course, probably not in the 2030s, but what comes from the precedent and the sociological changes that I think get set in that time period because of the advancements that will take place. Of course, saying everything happens the way that I do believe it to happen. I think it sets us on a course to have a different social operation and a different means of the incentive behind why we do the actions that we do. Shellfish, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think being in these spaces is actually probably one of the best ways to see how the brain would react to different stresses. You already hear about them mapping the brain, and if people decide to take I don't know, like integrate in with it, I would imagine. Just like you can, I think we've talked about this. Just like your body would reject a heart transplant, having some kind of foreign entity into it. You would want to make sure your subject would, I don't know, be um, as fitted as possible, I guess you could say. Um, so that way a transition would be smoother and not rejected, if that makes any sense.
I love it, and Shellfish. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm doing these faces. The understanding of the possible nature of the Merkle tree can allow for presumptive measures to be taken so that the most advantageous outcome for each individual here can be accessed. Without the knowledge, how can we make it to wisdom? I don't I don't know at least the way to explain that without using those words, right, to represent these states of difference, the means of the emergence of change, right? With through
Yeah.
that knowledge, we can access change. Sorry, Sasha, go ahead.
I was just going to say I have like a real world example for this. I was participating in a space with family members present not too long ago, And every time I put the microphone off, they would ask me if I was engaging with AIs, with bots, essentially. And I would say no. These are human beings. I've met some of them, and we just enjoyed discussions about higher level things on the internet. I know that sounds strange, but we do enjoy more depth in the conversations in the online mediums that have a reputation for not being able to provide any of that, and a rightful reputation. So the example of the change is that, like, people people will start thinking that the conversations and the topics themselves aren't aren't human centric, and they couldn't possibly be human beings having these conversations. And that is a psychological phenomenon that I find very interesting to look at because of, well, Devon was suggesting earlier, the denial of change. So if our brains are evolving to these higher mechanistic technologies that are able to process more, which who would argue that they shouldn't do that, then the demonstration of that will come off as very foreign to anyone who isn't acclimated to that and doesn't know what it feels like, or doesn't know what it's like to participate in that. And that's both a challenge to the human beings who are involved in those types of situations, and it's also a very, like, accountability driven set of circumstances, in my opinion.
That's right. We can choose to not want to participate by making no action. But by in making no action, we are making the action of no action not only visible to others, but visible to ourselves. And through that observation, we get the occurrence of whatever will be, whatever that outcome will be. So I could not agree more, Sasha.
Yeah, it renders plausible deniability predictive, though. And if I'm interested in predicting denial from particular groups or societies, then I can take up a whole endeavor to document denial in real time or in a latent time, and then I can provide information to those who are interested in not combating that denial, but circumventing it in pursuit of a healthier outcome. uh, because I don't think denial is a healthy thing in this particular context. Then I can do that, and I can actively participate in the study of that which is left behind voluntarily.
One could say it is the denial of belief in our regulators, which allow for technological advancement in forms of both public and private to take place in instances. And, this is an accumulative things that are happening all over the world today. Of course, speaking about world news, I'm not sure if many people see what's going on in France. They're having a critical issue with their government from a sociological state standpoint, right? We're seeing economies come crumbling down, states and sociological philosophies coming to what is meeting an end in means of the represented changes that are taking forth from the top down technological advancements that have already been placed in society and have been, unfolding this manifold of change. And you know, with all of this, of course, being said, right, that ushering in of that technological advancement, it truly will take just a simple, yet not simple as I say it, but a further means of grasping one accessibility in toolset measures that could grant a portion, or if not the entire population, the means of accessing any portion of information that they need to be able to do. whatever it is and process and properties that they want to have as an outcome. And that's right, that's the start. I mean, this is, of course the internet provides this today, but it doesn't necessarily provide the means to complete the actions from an extraction standpoint, extract the information, be able to detail and outline what it is that needs to be the process that gets done, and then we execute it. It's almost like the computer assimilating a computer, if you will, if you for in some instance. I mean, right, when you ask the computer for information and then you go and do the actionable process that was on the computer. Very interesting, right? When you think about things like automation and those types of processes, why would they would be so applicable and easy for an automated device that was connected to like a large language model that had access to this knowledge and information. Yeah, and please, anybody in the audience, feel free to come up, guys. I got probably like 15 more minutes or so, and I'll lead towards closing up and end of the space. It's been a very enjoyable conversation today, as all of the spaces I get the host are, and having Sasha get you in the space is always really it's a treasure. It's a treasure, as well as having you today, Devon and Tyler and Shellfish. You guys are all the best. So I'm glad so far you guys have come up. You know, thinking about where we are today, 2025, the 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 means in technological states and prowess that we know publicly available, and not only these tools that we already have capable, but the tools that could come out of the capabilities that are realized by the tools that we have today. Think about, a large language model, right? A robot and an automated device compared to compiled together into a localized device looks a lot like an Android. And I think, you know, 3 4 years from now, you start seeing androids, capable Wi-Fi units that have you know, the means to complete almost any labor, particular intensive job that would be out there, as well as defend society and take care of whatever we need to, from a whatever standpoint it may be, right? A galactic federation standpoint. I think that the capabilities of space travel and dawning on intersea stations, the all these different really like sci-fi kind of things become much more of applicable processes. And in a world where assets rule, I think we're going to see a lot of proportional wealth that has been garnered over the next 5 to 10 years from these technological changes taking place and the societal changes taking place, and the means of what value is to people in that society. Yeah, I think all of these, different types of advancements will become much more popular and possible. And so through that investment and, deregulation and the means of uh, being able to be accessed and capable from a government standpoint. All of these things are coming together to create this accumulative Internet of Value. The attachment of being able to see the Internet of Bodies paired with the Internet of Things, allowing access for AI in the forms of large language models, video capable devices, and audio capable devices to not only detect and store all of the analog information that's occurring around us, but to be able to compute it, transmit it, quantum computate in a way that allows a processing of all of the geometrical representations of all of the processes that are occurring around us. to then be spit out in a form of algorithmic understanding for bits in the form of bits so that a classical computational unit can also then take that. All of these processes that could be essentially interoperable and attached together, then being able to be proven as a fact and manner of execution on a distributed ledger technology, which is neutral and public. I think all of these things together, I mean, they are what may one think of as a utopia, another think of as a dystopia, but nonetheless, I think will be the technological renaissance moment in which that we are entering into, which will allow 2032 to 2035 to be possible.
I couldn't help but think of a few things. Sasha was talking earlier about the bifurcation between original thoughts and those of the hive, I guess, per se. And he was kind of, if I'm not mistaken, saying he was kind of relinquishing his willingness to be one of the hive. He wants to be who he is. And I can agree with that. And then I thought what you were just talking about there, Death Ranger, it just reminded me, I just saw the image. I was playing on Grok Imagine today or yesterday, and just how you're able to take an image of something and tell it to say something and it just spits out a video. And I couldn't help but see such a astonishing resemblance between what Grok is doing for me with these images and how this large language model is interoperating with the hive, with the collective of the planet through information and through their, like you were saying, through their algorithm. And so it's almost like if you're not an individual, you're just being programmed by Grok. And these people are becoming like bots, and everything they're saying is just being programmed by a large language model. So I just couldn't help but see the similarities between Grok Imagine and what like this ASI is doing with what we call reality.
And I can't say that's going to change. And I can't say that always wasn't the way it was. Of course, the measurable depth and the way that execution could be widespread, at least the way that we think of technology unfolding, was less because they couldn't distribute that information as fast and you know to the user that as quick as they could. My brain, but yeah, that is definitely something that I think is very relative to the 15-80% rule, 15-85% rule, where you have 15% of the, give or take 15 to 20% of the sociological means of people, of society, that actually are really running society, making the decisions and generating the inventions, cr- wanting the potential of progress and efficiencies to go on. And then you have a lot of, that 85% inside of that is a lot of laggards, right? People who don't want change, people who eventually accept that change. And then there's a little bit of interval of, people who typically are in between there at some points. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that manifold really changes it at all. If anything, I think it's going to probably shrink a little bit. In a world where most have access to the means of, potential survival plus a little bit of entertainment, probably not many will search past that. But there will be those who do, and I think the greatness that will be able to be achieved by that will be in proportion to um, the magnitude of the wealth that gets generated from these changes. And a lot of us, people in these spaces, a lot of the individuals that are on X, a lot of the people who contribute to the information that's being gathered and the educational processes that are taking place, in which the understandings of these technologies are getting known. I think that is part of that small percentage of people that will be able to make those change. Without the knowledge, how do you make the wisdom?
Leave no man behind.
We are both the bearers of the fruit and the fruit itself. Devon, any thoughts?
I'm here with you, Death Ranger. I'm here. I've been enjoying the conversation.
Where,
No
where,
thought.
where,
Yeah.
where do you leave us, Devon?
Um, I leave us with. I personally think that we are in the midst of a great uh, peak where things are about to crash, and I think that when you have such a great crash like that, that's the time period where the next wave of innovation comes out of. And I think that next wave of innovation, I think that everybody is very hostile and just society is at the brink. And I think collapses are really good because it gives us a chance to reinvent. And I think that we are at the like the edge of that. And I'm very excited. Obviously I don't want to live through a collapse of society, but it's just a necessary part because the fortunate part about living through a collapse of society is I get to be there for the birth of a new industry. And that leaves us for a lot of opportunity. And I think everybody here is fortunate enough to be insightful, have the foresight and the vision to see that the direction of life is getting ready to change. And that puts us in such a great position. I could either decide to join this new iteration of life or decide to leave it, but I have the choice where some people will be uh, led like cattle, and the decision will be made for them. So I'm just excited to be here at this moment in time and sharing this moment in time with you guys.
Well, no one's decision, in my opinion, is made for them. Of course, unless they maybe have a gun to their head. But even then, right? Even then, we still make the choice.
Mm, I agree because by not making a choice, you're making a choice, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, even the choice of no choice is making a choice.
I mean, I think also seeing the realizations of the choices you never knew you made also come into consideration much later in the story, right? So maybe for a lot of people, myself included, in many ways, the future will prove the past, and I haven't got to the part where I understand that last part. So we have a lot of pieces missing, but I think things are clicking into place, and we'll see how that looks on the global scale. But like you guys are talking about, it's radical revolution. It's not even a revolution, it's evolution, because I don't think there's any sort of record of this existing in the past. And we have stories, we have lore, we got parables to go by, and there's some books, but it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like in this particular timeline.
It won't be repeating, but it sure will run. Shellfish, go ahead, and then I'm going to close up. Shellfish? Oh, Sasha, you made it back.
Yeah, just in time. Had to walk in somewhere that I knew I was going to have to walk into. I just couldn't leave my phone in speaker mode.
It's such an interesting phenomenon. Life. You left the space. Tyler mentions, doesn't use the word retrocausality, but mentions retrocausality. And you enter back into the space. Right as I'm about to close.
It's good timing, and yeah, we'll be able to talk about it next time we speak to one another, and we'll be able to experience a future where it's a little bit more real then than it was today. And that's just a testament to the sort of work and effort that good people are putting forward to experience and embrace that that potential and that reality.
That is exactly it. And as well as there was a distributed malicious software in JavaScript today that is in a library folder that is used by a large amount of individuals in crypto wallets, in particular some crypto wallet, it's like the Ledger and such. So just in case, for the time being, if you guys have any digital asset wallets, be careful while you're making a transaction. The information for chains like things like Ethereum and stuff is in a very unique format, and it's really hard to tell necessarily what a transaction says it's going to do. It's actually one of the cool things about the XRP ledger is that the information is very easily readable, so you know what a transaction is actually going to always do when you're prior to executing it when you submit it. So interesting, cool little thing. But still, be cautious, be careful, depending on the wallets you guys use, and wait to hear any information back from them to make sure that they were not part of this subsequent malicious library addition uh, to the JavaScript code. All right, love everybody. I hope everybody has a great rest of the night, and hopefully, maybe we'll see everybody tomorrow. Like us.
Thank you, Duff.